to consider some of the interruptions that I've had during my examination of witnesses. It seemed to be based on your sense of inefficiency, asking the same question repeatedly. The prosecution throughout the course of the trial has, to some extent, doubled the length of their examination by writing it on the board, as if the court reporter isn't good enough to do it. And we all know what the actual reason for doing that is, but it's extraordinarily inefficient and time-consuming. I've been asking witnesses questions, and there are times when I think the answer is very important, and you know where we're going, you know what the important issues are in the case. The jury doesn't necessarily know what the important issues are in the case. So I may ask the witness what I would describe as a kind of three-dimensional answer, as opposed to just yes. With Billboard, for example, I know that sounds silly to you, and it sounds insignificant to you, but the prosecution, one of the major parts of their case is, why the hell did Tex McIver drive to Emory rather than Brady? And I think it's important for me to illustrate that to the jury, how irrational that prosecution theory is, and I need to repeat it sometimes. And I need to do it in a way that's more than just, what does Billboard say? It doesn't say, okay, move on to the next topic. So, without asking for any particular remedy this time, I'm going to ask you to be a little more non-selective in your insistence on efficiency. And if the prosecution is going to be allowed to write down every answer that they think is important, we should be allowed to at least ask the question twice or in three-dimensional. Let's not be quite so concerned with whether the clock is ticking on our side and not the prosecution's side.
Okay. I appreciate the observation. I'll share with you my perspective on that. I am mindful of the clock for everyone, but in particular for the jurors, not one side or the other. And I want to make sure they're staying focused. My approach typically is to allow something to get bumped into a couple times before I even get in the mix. And so if you feel like you ask a question once and you start to ask something along those lines, making it two-dimensional rather than one, or three-dimensional rather than two, and I'm suggesting we move on, then that's my mistake. I'm not trying to limit one side and not the other. Where I recall speaking up is when we were on, and I'm not being facetious, like the fifth Billboard question with the same witness. That the Billboard says, don't go here no matter what if it's trauma. Now, that's okay, but then it's, and don't go here no matter what if it's really serious trauma. I'm making this up. But I'm going to be mindful going forward to be non-selective. That's always been my approach. I haven't perceived that the breaking it down on the whiteboard is necessarily slowing things down, but I'll focus on that now as well. And it's certainly not the case, I believe, that everything every witness says gets put on the whiteboard. It tends to be when it's something that purportedly came from your client's mouth or maybe Ms. McIver's mouth. But I'll stay focused on that as well. I am trying to be fair and balanced in all that I do, consistent with seeing when the jurors start to unplug because they figured out the point that's being made. And I don't mean to overestimate their ability to figure out, but generally on iteration 3 or 4, and we'll just stick with the Billboard scenario, the point's been made. And less so time constraint and more so are you doing your closing argument now is why I tend to intervene. But I will be particularly thoughtful about that as the week starts. I may not remember to be as thoughtful as the week progresses, and I invite you to remind me. It's helpful to have these observations because we're all looking at this trial from a different perspective. So I'll call it a point well taken. Anything else from the defense at this time? Oh, okay. I did receive an email this morning that I haven't digested yet, forwarded to me from Ms. Lyon. I think the state identified a few other segments from Mr. McIver's statement to law enforcement, so I'll take a look at that as well, and then hopefully we'll reach some closure as to where we are with that and if there's more we need to get on the record.
I hope to have, as soon as you make a decision, I hope to have a redacted version of the video and transcript that both sides of the court can look at to make sure we're well within.
Okay. And the state has conferred with defense, not necessarily about these new segments, but what I had flagged as being appropriate, or there hasn't been a conversation yet between the two sides?
Not really.
Okay.
I haven't had time, Judge.
Okay. Fair enough. I think that's it then. The jurors are ready. You ready with your next witnesses? Great. Well, let's bring the jurors in, please.
Yes.
I heard the court on Friday, so we are pivoting to a new area.
Mr. Strength, before I have a seat, raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you should give the court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir. We will. Please have a seat. Get as close to the mic as you can. For the purposes of the court's record, please state and spell your name.
My name is Allen, Allan, Craig, Craig, Stringer, Stringer.
You're good with the microphone, Mr. Stringer. Everyone's awake now.
You might be surprised.
Good morning, sir.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
A wonderful day in the neighborhood.
Okay. Give me 1 second just to get set up very briefly. All right. Could you turn and introduce yourself to the jurors by restating your name and, sir, tell them how old you are.
Oh, gosh.
Surprise.
My name is Allen Craig Stringer. I'm 71 years old.
All right. And Mr. Stringer, could you share with the jurors a little bit about your educational background?
Went through the Navy, was in college, went through the Navy during Vietnam, came back, went to college, got most of my associate's degree, got into billboards 37 years ago. I've been vice president of about 3 billboard companies. I've owned my own company for about 10 and a half years and sold it. As late, I was just involved in the settlement and sale of Quarry companies to Link Media Services, who's owned by, I can't think of her name, but Warren Buffett's sister anyway. One owns real estate. She also owns the outdoor division. And I've been retired since December of last year.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, that's December 2017.
Yes, sir.
You retired from where?
I retired from Link Media Group.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you ever do an employment stint with U.S. Enterprises?
Yes, it was under, I had 2 companies that I ran under that, U.S. Media. We sold 8 years after I started, and then I'd been there 17 and a half years, so we had the second one when all this happened. We sold to Link Media Group, and I was involved in that also.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, the 17 years, is that how long you worked for U.S. Enterprises?
I worked for U.S. Enterprise March 1999, March 1st, up till now, and directly for Diane
McIver.
McIver.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when you started back in the 90s, what was your position and how did it evolve, if it ever did evolve?
6 months into my employment, I became vice president of U.S. Media's group, and I also was special projects director for the Quarry Entertainment Company.
Okay. What kind of company was that?
Quarry Entertainment, not good. The One-Armed Bandits and all the truck stops. We had Pilot, we had Flying J, we had, it was a long time ago now.
Long time
We
ago.
did sell that.
You sold that?
We sold that.
So within convenience stores or gas stations, you had the little...
We were at a much different level. We had all like across the United States.
The gambling machines?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, when did you really come to be acquainted with Diane McIver?
1 hour after I started working for her.
Okay. And where did you fit in the hierarchy at U.S. Enterprises in relationship to Diane McIver?
I was number 2. I mean, she was the president of all companies, and I was vice president of all the billboards and whatever she wanted me to do.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors just a little bit about the kind of relationship that you and Diane McIver fostered through the years?
Sure. When I started with the company, I was told that they had just sold to Clear Channel for $48 million. And I was told they had 4 salesmen, 5 billboards for sale, a vice president of sales, and a marketing director. And when I came on board, I was told that if I sold those 5 billboards, I would be made vice president of the company, of which I did, and my next job was to fire everybody. I would say our relationship almost was like brother and sister, from the standpoint of we'd holler at each other all week long and play golf on the weekends, and it was almost like there was this is this and this is this. We don't mix the two. We have our pleasure playing golf. We go to work on Monday morning. Very strict in that area also.
Okay. Now, what does you mean that you and Diane McIver would holler at each other? What does that mean?
We would holler at each other.
About what?
Anything. If she thought that I did something I wasn't supposed to do, I was like a child and corrected. And I shut up.
Okay. And were you the only person that you ever observed that kind of attitude from Diane McIver?
She told me personally, she says, Craig, I have never let anyone in the company into my personal life like I have you. She said, respect it.
Okay. What did you take that to mean?
Respect her.
Stop.
Wait 1 second. Just wait 1 second.
Okay.
No, 7 notes here right now.
And I'm not going down a path.
Well, you started.
Okay. So, you'd like him to turn elsewhere? You want me to address what we just heard? I'm trying to work
I'm
through.
objecting on the basis that he listened to the hearsay statement.
Okay.
I don't know where he's going next. I don't know where he's been. I don't know what his intentions are, but it's hearsay.
Okay. Well, we know where he's been because we've all been listening. Let's not ask this witness more about what Ms. McIver had to say.
I understand.
Okay.
Now, can you tell the jurors, did you also come to know the defendant in this case,
Yes.
Claude McIver? When did you come to know him?
When he married her.
Okay. And over the years, did you develop a relationship with the defendant?
Loved him dearly.
Loved him dearly. How did you feel about Diane McIver?
Love her dearly. We played golf. I played golf with her for 17 and a half years. I played golf with Tex and Diane 13 years.
Okay. How often would you play golf? Let's start with first Diane McIver.
Once a week, sometimes twice.
And did you have the occasion to play out at Reynolds in Lake Oconee?
Every time we played,
Every time you played.
just about.
How often would you all play golf out that way?
Again, if it wasn't raining, if it wasn't snowing, we were playing. Normally we would play on a Sunday afternoon about 2 o'clock. Saturdays around 12 o'clock if we played that. So, 2 times a week sometimes, 1 time a week most of the time.
Okay. How about the defendant? How often would you play golf with the defendant?
Once they were married and once we started playing, it was the same situation. We played, there were three of us.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors your relationship with Diane McIver? Did you know anything about her personal finances? Her money?
She was very quiet about that. No.
Okay. Did you know anything about her personal relationship with her husband?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors that what you knew about her relationship with her husband was based on what you saw?
Exactly.
Okay. And so, was she private about discussing those personal details with her husband like she was about privacy about her money?
I mean, for the 13 years that they were together, that I saw them, they were very close, very affectionate, very kind. Diane was a little bit tough to handle sometimes. She'd get tough to handle, but I mean...
Well, she never discussed the personal details with you?
No, not at all. Right. Only what I saw between her and Tex, and that was good.
I understand. Now, can you tell the jurors, as you sit here today, do you have any adverse feelings towards the defendant?
Can I tell you exactly what happened?
First, answer my question. Let me see if I can direct you the best so you don't say anything inappropriate.
When I found out what happened, I absolutely did. I mean, basically my two best friends, and this hurt me terribly. I waited about a week and I went to church. I asked the people to pray for me. They said, "I'm not the judge, I'm not the juror. We will all face the same judge." And I walked out of there, and we played golf twice after that.
You and the defendant?
Yeah.
You had a sense of forgiveness?
I had to.
Now, I want to talk to you about a topic in particular, okay?
Okay.
That's alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors, years ago, would you drink alcohol with Diane McIver and or the defendant?
Absolutely.
Explain that to the jurors. Like how often, what would be the occasion, and what would you drink?
Well, I'd start the morning out with 2 White Russians about 8:30 in the morning. Diane never drank.
So, what Mr. Stringer's consuming, what's the relevance of that?
It's not, I really wasn't expecting that answer, so I'll
Okay.
say it's a little non-responsive. Let me direct you better with a question.
Okay.
What did Diane McIver drink in your presence?
Diane never drank while we played golf.
Understand?
Wine. At dinner, wine.
Wine?
Yeah.
White wine, red wine?
Wine.
What color was it?
What's the most popular wine at the moment that everybody's drinking?
Okay. But when you saw her drink, what color was the wine that she drank?
Every color.
And so what
Mostly
color?
white, but every color.
Okay. Does that include red?
Chianti's red.
Okay. I just need you to tell me. Okay. How about the defendant?
Same thing, basically. He liked red wine better than white, I believe.
Okay. And you've seen this with your own 2 eyes, correct?
For all the years that I was with him, yes.
Okay. Now, did there come a point in time when you stopped drinking?
8.5 years ago, joined AA.
And as you sit here today, are you a recovering alcoholic?
I'm continuing to recover. Haven't had a drink in 8.5 years.
All right. Congratulations. Can you tell the jury if your relationship with Diane McIver was one in which you knew anything about her will situation, her estate planning? Did you participate in anything like that?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Now, did you know Austin Swall?
Yes.
Okay. How did you know Austin Swall?
Diane was his godmother, and I lived with Craig about 4 months one time, his father.
Okay. And so, how would you describe her affection or her relationship with Austin?
Abundant.
What does that mean when you say abundant?
She really did love the child. I think it was, she loved the child.
Okay. And do you know anything about her relationship with the Swalls, Ann and Craig Swall at the time? Austin's mother and father.
I have no of the legal ramifications of the child. Absolutely not.
No, I'm just talking about their personal interactions. Do you know anything about the relationship between Diane on the one hand and the Swalls on the other? You know anything about their relationship?
Not totally, no.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors when is the last time that you saw Diane McIver when she was alive?
September 25th, 2016, I think it is now.
Okay.
9:30, a hug and a kiss at night.
It's 9:30 p.m.
9:30 p.m.
And where did you see her?
We were at Longhorns on West Avenue.
And West Avenue was located
Conyers.
in Conyers. Now, can you tell the jury what time did you see? Let's strike that. Let me ask you a better question. Before you got to Longhorns, where were you?
We had played golf at Reynolds, I think Plantation, I'm not, or National, one or the other. Got through about 6:30, split up. They went to the farm, I went to my condo, got dressed. They went before I did to Longhorns. I was called while I was on I-20 getting there, and they went ahead and ordered a steak for me, and I got there around probably 8:20, 8:30.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors what time was tea time? You remember on that Sunday?
I believe around 2 o'clock. I mean, it can absolutely be checked, I'll tell you that.
Right. And that was nothing unusual about playing golf in the afternoon on Sunday, right?
I lost.
You lost. That was unusual?
No.
Okay. Right. Diane was a pretty good golfer.
8 handicap.
She was an 8 handicap. And she kind of took her golf seriously. You knew she invested a lot of money in golf, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your handicap?
18.
And how about the defendant?
About the same.
And for non-golfers, kind of generally, what does that mean?
Objection to relevance, Your Honor.
I can move on. I'll move on.
All right.
Who won that day?
Diane.
You remember what she shot?
Nope.
Were y'all betting?
Your Honor, objection to relevance.
I'm tied up.
Okay.
Yeah. Did y'all bet?
Always a dollar bet. Never big money. Just a good friendship bet.
Okay. All right. So can you tell the jurors during the round of golf that you played? By the way, how many holes did you play?
18.
Okay. Was Diane hollering or doing anything like that while y'all were playing?
No.
Okay.
She mostly gave you the eye.
The eye. Okay. What does that mean?
If you were out of sorts, she would look at you and you'd shut up.
Okay. She didn't like you to talk during the round.
Mm-mm.
Okay. How about if the defendant lost his ball or anything like that on Sunday and took some time to go find it? You remember talking to me about that?
Both of us do.
Okay.
She hated it.
So how did she react? How did she react that day?
Well, a person with an 8 we were playing as a family first, okay? We always went and looked for our balls when we lost them. She was always disgusted at us when we lost them, but we were not as good of golfers as she was. I mean, she was a robot. And sort of a time management type thing more than anything.
So can you tell the jurors, while you were out on the course, did you see Diane McIver drink any alcohol, any wine, anything?
Never.
How about the defendant?
There were.
How about the defendant? You didn't drink it. All right. Now, when you got the Longhorn, who did you see there?
Danny Joe, Carter, Diane, and Tex.
Okay. Where were they?
They were sitting in the back booth on the left.
Okay. And had they already started eating?
Yes.
Was your food already on the table when you got there?
It came when I walked in. They brought it.
Okay. And did you see any wine at the table?
One bottle of wine.
One bottle of wine. And did you see any wine in anyone's glasses in particular?
Not until we left.
Okay. So explain that to me.
Tex left a full glass of wine, red wine, on the table.
Okay. Did you see him drink any wine at dinner?
I didn't even notice or didn't even care to notice.
Okay. How about Diane? Did you see her drink any wine at dinner?
Same situation. There was only one bottle. I paid for it.
Right. But your testimony is at the time that you were sitting there, you never saw anybody drink any wine.
I never thought about it. It's nothing I thought about.
When you say you didn't think about it, just help me understand. Does that mean no, you didn't see anybody drink, or you don't know?
I don't know. I don't know how much. I was not there.
I understand.
So, yeah. When I got there, I didn't notice whether they were drinking iced tea or wine or whatever. I was eating my steak.
And who paid for the bill?
I did.
How much was it? Do you remember?
Right at $130.
And can you tell the jurors about what time was dinner over with, and what time did you all leave?
Right at about 9:15, I believe it was on the ticket, or the person didn't understand naval time, or it was done in naval time. But about 9:15, 9:30, we were out on the little concourse in front. Everybody hugged necks, kissed on the cheek, went their separate ways.
Okay. And can you tell the jury what was the environment like at the table during dinner?
Wonderful. I was eating steak.
Okay. And during the course of the investigation, you were asked about the receipt, correct?
Yes.
And since that time, you've actually seen the receipt.
Yeah, the police officers went and got the receipt and basically showed it to me, yes.
Right. So when you all hugged and kissed and said goodnight, did you see who got into the driver's seat of the vehicle?
No, I did not.
Did you ever see what vehicle they were traveling in?
I believe it was the King Ranch.
What color was it?
God, white, I think.
Okay. The King Ranch, that's a Ford Expedition?
I guess, yeah. Big.
Okay. Let me show you State's Exhibit 215. You recognize that?
That's the bill.
That's the bill. the screen. There's an open time for the bill, right?
I have no idea what that means.
I understand, but the time right there is what? If you convert it to regular time.
8/19/43.
Okay. And this close time, if you converted it to regular time, is what?
9/03.
Total amount of the bill?
131/82/62.
Okay. And one bottle of Trinity Oaks. That's the bottle of wine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
$25.
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, was that the last time that you saw or spoke to Diane McIver?
Yes.
And when did you find out that something had happened to her?
In the morning when I walked into the office.
Okay. And is that the office at Quarry Company?
Yes.
Where the smokestack is?
Yes.
When you got to the office, who was there?
Most of the operations people were there. Other than that, I have no idea.
Okay. Let me show you a series of photos. They've been marked as State's Exhibits number 221, 22, 223, and 224. Let's take a look at each one of those individually.
I'm sorry, what were those numbers again?
221 through 224. Can you recognize and can you identify those photos?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do those photos fairly and accurately show the Quarry Company from different vantage points
Yeah.
in the office that you worked at with Diane McIver?
Yes.
I would tender, Your Honor, to evidence 221 through 224.
Okay. Admitted.
This is State's Exhibit 224. Just for the jurors to describe what we see in 224.
Well, on the left side of the picture is the entrance in between the smokestack and the tower. Tower's in the very back of the property. Smokestack, as you're looking at the building, is on the left-hand side of the building, right on the connector. I can't see where the office is, where you go in or not, but that was sort of where we parked.
Okay. This is State's Exhibit 222. You recognize that?
Yep.
And can you tell the jurors to describe to them what we see in 222?
All right, we have a double gate that came in the front.
When you touch the screen, I think you can make a mark on it.
Okay. Well, yeah, okay. Here we had a double gate, one that rose up, one that slid to let you in. This is the main entrance into, and then around here was parking. Here was executive parking.
That's what Diane McIver parked. Yes? Yes?
Yes.
And then you also have a garage area back there in the back, right?
Garage area right here led to a stage that we had back there, and also storage.
Okay. Now, as part of the Billboard company that you had, that you ran the division there at Quarry, in this photo, States 223, can you identify for the jurors where is the Quarry smokestack in this photograph?
Right there,
Okay.
across from Grady.
Right across from Brady Hospital, right? Mm-hmm. Now, had you ever seen the defendant travel to the Quarry offices there where the smokestack is before? You ever seen the defendant at Quarry before?
Yes.
About how many times do you think he's been to that building? In the 17 years that you worked there, and the 13 years that you know him?
Once.
Once that you've seen him?
No. Once that Austin got up, I guess about 2-3 years old, Tex would come by some Friday afternoons and pick him up and pick Diane up to go to the ranch. 100 times, guessing.
Have you been to the ranch before?
I lived there for about a year while they were building the pool.
Okay. And can you give some context about when the pool was being built?
Absolutely not.
Was it before or after they got married?
I wouldn't be able to give you an honest answer.
Okay. Do you even know when they got married?
I was there.
Okay. Do you remember what year it was?
Nope.
Okay. Was the pool built at the time that they got married?
Yes.
Okay. And so you would have stayed there about that time?
Right. Just the period of time. The pool took forever to build because every time it got halfway built, it rained and filled it up with water. It had to dry out. So there were some very expensive items in the outlaw house, and so I basically stayed there. I needed a place to stay. She had a place to stay. I stayed there,
Right.
and sort of guarded somewhat the place, you know.
Okay. And by the outlaw house, are you talking about the saloon that was built out in the back?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
That saloon was built at the time that Diane McIver and the defendant got married, correct?
I believe it was.
Now, could you tell the jurors, that morning when you got to the office and you found out that something had happened to Diane, what did you do?
Call Tex.
You called the defendant? Yes?
Yes.
And did you reach him?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors, what did you say to him?
I said, Tex, what the hell's going on?
And what did he say to you?
He told me that Dani, Joe, and Diane were in an automobile accident on Hill Street, and Diane passed in the night.
Are you sure about that?
I swore on the Bible, or swore. Yes.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay. In connection with this event, do you recall speaking to not only Detective Smith, but myself, and also testifying before the grand jury? Do you remember
Yes.
that?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to show you.
There is a rest of the story if I can give it.
There's no question, Dani,
Sure.
Hold on 1 second. You okay?
Hold that thought.
Sure.
You see, transcript of Craig Stringer before the Fulton County grand jury, right? Can you tell the jurors what date did you give that testimony before the grand jury?
April 26, 2017.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, at the time that you gave that statement, had you already talked to Detective Smith from the Atlanta Police Department?
Yes.
And then you were kind enough to meet with me over in the Quarry building, correct?
Yes.
And we talked to you about the case, correct?
Yes.
Now, let me ask you, and this might seem like a common sense question, do you think your memory was better back then than it is sitting here today? Do you believe that? Is that possible?
No.
Okay. Why do you say that?
I have no idea what the difference my memory would be from now until then.
Okay.
I am older. I've fallen 6 times. What do we need to say?
Okay, all right. You've had some challenges since then.
I've had some challenges.
I understand. But as you sit here today, you're not currently under the influence or anything like that?
No.
Okay. Take a look at page 5 of that transcript. And I want you to just read the page silently to yourself. Wait, first of all, let me direct you with a question, okay?
All right, the
Have you had a chance
question,
to read it?
well, I've got to the point where it's the wrong person.
Mr. String, hold on.
Okay.
It's just a process, okay? We're going to get to it.
All right,
Okay. Did you have a chance to read the transcript,
I'll read it completely.
that page? Have you had a chance to read it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so now, after having read your transcript before the grand jury in April of last year, can you tell the jurors, did you testify to something different to the grand jurors that you're saying today about what exactly the defendant told you when you called him?
Based on this, yes.
Okay. So tell the jurors, now that you've had a chance to read the transcript, is your memory refreshed about exactly what you testified about earlier when I asked you what did the defendant say when you called him?
Well,
First of all, just answer that question. Is your memory refreshed now?
I'm refreshed.
Okay, all right. And so can you tell the jurors, what did you say to the grand jurors that the defendant said to you when you called him the day you learned that Diane McIver had passed?
Okay, line 7.
No, you can't read it. Mr. String.
I'm not going to read it. I'm going to tell you where it's at.
Okay.
Line 7 through 13 on the page.
Right. Okay.
When I called Tex first and he told me the Hill Street story, Mr. Quarry came in later and told the whole company that Diane had an accident last night and was shot in the back. And he said it was accidentally by Tex.
Okay.
I called, and here's where it kicks in. I called him back again. I said, what the heck is the story on this? Mr. Corey just said you shot her in the back. And he said, I didn't want to tell you. It's right in here. I didn't want to tell you all this to get you involved in it with the police or whatever. I said, I already am, basically, because they asked me about it. And but that's when Tex said, I basically did not want to get you involved in it. And I said, okay. I did not go away happy.
Okay. So let me see if I understand what you're saying. I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, okay? At the time that you talked to the grand jurors, you didn't tell them about the first conversation you had with the defendant. Is that what you're saying?
I did not. It was, I considered it hearsay.
Okay. And explain to the jurors here today, why did you consider it hearsay?
Because for one thing, when I called him, it was from someone in the office that told me that, basically, did you hear about Diane? And I said, no, she passed away last night. Didn't say how, didn't say when, didn't say what. That's when I called Tex. And he basically said, I wasn't even going to take your phone call until I saw it was you, and I did.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. And then he said, I said, what happened? And he said about the Hill Street thing. When I called him back after Mr. Corey announced that she was shot in the back, I said, what's going on here? And he said, basically that, I didn't want to get you involved in it. I didn't want to get you involved. I wasn't there.
Okay.
When you say I wasn't there, meaning you weren't there?
I wasn't in the
Matter
I wasn't in the truck when she was shot.
So, Mr. String, I've talked to you a couple of times. Why haven't you told me that before?
We basically never brought it up. It's the truth, not lying.
Okay. Can you tell the jury that your feelings for the defendant have anything to do with why you didn't say anything about that first conversation?
Well, it happened so close. Basically, he said that. Mr. Quarry came in, brought us all in the thing, said that she was shot in the back. So they were very close together, and I called him back. And he basically said he didn't want to get me involved,
Okay.
which is plainly stated here, but that was after Mr. Quarry told everybody.
Okay. Now, do you know about how many telephone calls did you have with the defendant then in the day or two after this event?
I don't think we were supposed to have any conversations, so I didn't.
Okay. And as you sit here today, do you remember the phone number that you had when you would have had those conversations with the defendant?
My phone number is 678.
I don't want you to give it out loud completely, but I would like for you to give me just the last 4 digits of your phone number. Okay, hold on one second. All right. Okay, your phone number? The last 4 numbers.
6569.
6569. And the first phone call you would have had would have been the morning of the
shooting.
26th?
Yes.
The second phone call that you would have had, was it also on the same day?
Same morning.
Did he call you?
No.
You don't recall whether or not he ever called you? No? No?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I would like to tender into evidence phone records.
Exhibit number?
Yes, sir. State's exhibit number 143 is a disc that contains phone records from AT&T for the defendant, Claude McIver. It has the certification and declaration of authenticity of records attached in the front. The second page is the subscriber information that tells who the phone number belongs to. So I will tender States 143 into evidence. Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay. Any objection to 143 coming into evidence? I don't have a problem with this. Okay.
That's what I'm going. States 144, Your Honor, is the AT&T phone records for Landon Diane McIver. It's a disc. Also attached is the declaration of authenticity of records from AT&T and the subscriber information that indicates who the number belongs to. I will tender in the evidence States 145. They are phone records for, actually I'll do it with the upcoming witness.
Okay. So the two you want to get in now are 143 and 144. 143, cell phone records for Mr. McIver's phone.
Correct.
144, cell phone records for Ms. McIver's phone.
That's correct.
Mr. Samuel, any objection to the admission of those two discs? They're admitted? You guys have extra water for Mr. Stringer, please?
I want you to tell the jury whether or not on that exhibit you see your phone number, the one that ends in 6569.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And can you tell the jurors if on that exhibit where you see the last 4 digits that references 6569, is there also a number that references the number for the defendant, Claude McIver?
8.
Yeah, okay, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Tell me what the last 4 digits are for Claude McIver.
8137.
Now, can you tell the jurors if on that exhibit, does it reference calls between your number and the number from Mr. McIver?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury, is there a time listed for the calls?
Yes.
What's the first time for the first call you received?
7-11.
7-11? That from
Him to me.
from him to you. At 7-11, is that AM?
AM.
That's on the 26th?
Yes.
Okay. What's the second reference?
7:31.
Is it from him to you or you to him?
Him to me.
What's the next one?
8:51. Him.
Who?
Text to me.
What's the next one?
9:52. Me to text.
How about the next one?
14:08. Me to text.
What time is 14:08?
2:08.
Any others?
2:11. Text to me.
Your Honor, I would tender states 344 in evidence at this time.
Any objection to states 344? It's admitted.
And states 344 just appears on the screen in front of you, correct? Is that right, Mr. Stringer? Okay.
Yes.
You just zoom in so folks can see. Okay. So in that first column is the number of calls, correct?
Correct.
What's the total number of calls between you and the defendant on that day?
6.
6. And then it gives the date, correct?
Correct.
And the time.
Correct.
And the length of the call.
Correct.
I don't think your point is right.
I'm sorry?
I don't think your point is the right column.
Okay. Right, okay. I see what you're saying. The length of the call, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the originating number,
Yes.
okay? And the person who actually makes the call, correct?
Yes.
And then the terminating party or the person who answers the call.
Yes.
And then there's the name of the person.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you remember speaking to Detective Darren Smith from the Atlanta Police Department on September 27th of 2016?
Yes.
That would have been the day after these calls, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when you spoke to Detective Smith, you did not tell him, or strike to answer a better question, did you tell him about the very first phone call you had with the defendant where he talked about there being a car accident
No.
near Hill Street?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Why didn't you tell the detective?
I have no idea. There may have been a little bit of dismay on my part. I don't know.
Okay.
17 and a half years? Yeah.
And when you say dismay after 17 and a half years, explain to the jurors, what are you talking about? What were you feeling then?
How would you feel if your best friend for 17 years got shot in the back?
Okay. And at the time, you were also friends with the defendant.
Absolutely.
Now, can you tell the jurors, after you spoke to Detective Smith, did you have another conversation with the defendant?
I'm sure I did if they got records for it. I mean, it wasn't. There was a period of time in which we could not talk to each other.
I understand.
So I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
I have talked to him, yes, once he was released to talk.
Hold on. Let me direct you with a question. Let me direct you better with a question. Was there a phone conversation between yourself and the defendant where you talked about how much wine was left on the table at dinner.
Yes,
Okay. Did you have that conversation with the defendant after you talked to the detective on September 27th?
yes,
Okay. You remember that?
yes.
And can you tell the jurors, without leaving anything out, okay, what did the defendant say to you?
It was after the second game of golf that we played together. We went and ate at McDonald's, and sitting across the table, he asked me that I discuss the amount of alcohol that was drank, and
Discuss that with who?
with anybody, with the police, with anybody that had called me to talk to me, to ask me about the situation after I told him that they had already contacted me. And I said, I don't even think I thought about it. There was not that much drink that it was worth talking about.
But the defendant asked you about it.
Yeah.
And did he ask you what you told the police?
The truth.
Listen to my question. Did he ask you what you told the police?
Yes.
Okay. And when he asked you that, what did you tell him?
The truth.
Okay. Let me show you a couple of photos. Any objection? Okay. Your Honor, I'm going to tender 2 photographs. They're marked as State's Exhibits number 338 and 339. Okay. Okay. There be no objection, I would just move them into the record.
338, 339. Okay, they're admitted.
This is State's Exhibit number 339. I'm publishing for the jury. You recognize the individuals in that photo?
Yes.
And can you tell what they're holding in their hands?
Looks like a couple glasses of dark liquid, probably wine.
Okay. Now, I think you've already told the jurors that whatever dismay you felt on the 26th when you talked to the defendant, you ended up going to church about that.
Yes.
Correct?
Objection to relevant.
Goes to the state of feelings of the witness to the defendant.
Overruled.
Okay. How soon after Diane McIver died did you play golf with the defendant?
Once he was released.
Oh, wait. I wasn't trying to.
I understand, but just let's focus it in a different way.
Okay, let me ask you a better question, okay? Did you play golf with the defendant after Diane died?
Twice.
Okay. 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 Okay, thank you very much. And I think that's all my questions.
Okay, Mr. Samuel, do you have questions for Mr. Stringer? Of Mr. Stringer. As usual, during the break, don't talk about the case, no outside research. We'll get you back in here shortly. Thank you for your time so far today.
All rise for the jurors.
Conference that precipitated the break that the jurors are taking right now. On at least 2 instances when Mr. Stringer was trying to place in his chronology when something happened in response to a question from the state that was, it appeared to me to be eliciting this. Mr. Stringer started to allude to Mr. McIver being released from somewhere, presumably jail. And Mr. Samuel justifiably was concerned about that and asked that I talk with Mr. Stringer to make sure that he not use that, at least out loud, as his reference point going forward. Hence my cautionary instruction to Mr. Stringer. Mr. Samuel, anything you want to get on the record in connection with either of those bench conferences or my direction to Mr. Stringer?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Rucker, anything else?
No.
Okay. Then we'll have a 5-ish minute break and see if the jury's ready to come back in and continue with the examination of Mr. Stringer. Thank you.
Your Honor, all jury members are present and accounted for.
Great. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen.
Please be seated.
Let's all be seated except for Mr. Samuel. When you are ready, Mr. Samuel, you can commence your cross-examination.
Mr. Stringer, my name is Don Samuel. We've never met before, correct?
Yes, sir.
We've never talked on the phone before.
No, sir.
How many times have you talked to Mr. Rucker?
I guess including in the halls about 3 times.
Okay. You've been to his office. He's been to Quarry.
Came to Quarry.
Okay. You also met with police detectives, correct?
Yes.
How many times did you meet with police detectives when Mr. Rucker was not present?
Once, I believe.
Okay. Have you had phone interviews also with prosecutors and investigators?
People have called me, yes. Yes.
How many times?
I have no idea.
Ballpark.
6.
Okay. You also testified under oath at the grand jury.
Do I?
Under oath at the grand jury.
Yes, sir.
And the oath you took was the same oath you took here, which was to tell the truth, the whole truth,
Right.
and nothing but the truth to help you God.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
You remember testifying at the grand jury?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you agree with Mr. Rucker that the first time you ever mentioned in any of those encounters, on the phone, in person, at Quarry, or under oath previously, about this other phone call was about 30 minutes ago.
The first time I brought it up, yes.
Okay. You told any policeman that before?
Sir?
You never told the policeman that before?
No.
You never told the DAs that
No.
before? You never told the investigators from the DA's office about that before?
No.
And you lied when you went to the grand jury under oath.
No.
You didn't answer the question in the grand jury about what was said on the phone call, did you?
I didn't lie. I didn't recall and bring it up.
Do you remember the thing about the whole truth as part of the oath?
Yes.
And you didn't tell the whole truth.
I told the truth today.
I was asking you about the grand jury.
To the best of my knowledge, I was being asked questions by people in the audience, and I answered them as I was asked.
Okay. You did not say anything about this first phone call about some supposed car accident on Hill Street, did you?
No, but it was spoken.
At the grand jury, did you say that or did you not say that?
I did not. I said, but it was spoken.
Mr. Stringer, is it my understanding from your testimony this morning that you called Mr. McIver
Right.
and said, in your words, something like, what happened?
Right.
Okay. And about what time was that call, do you think? Morning, noon, or night?
Pull out the sheet. It was in the morning.
In the morning. About what time in the morning?
I think mine was about 9, something around 9:20, whatever, after Mr. Quarry talked to us.
Okay. And then, and that's the phone call where he said something about Hill Street.
Right.
Okay. And then you had a conversation with Mr. Quarry.
Yeah, well, he had a conversation with us.
And then you called Mr. McIver again.
Yes.
So there should be 2 phone calls from you to Mr. McIver.
Should be, yeah.
Within how much time of each other?
I don't know. 2-3 hours.
Okay. Well, remember authenticating this and saying this was an accurate reciting of the phone calls from you and the cell phone calls?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a call at 9:52 in the morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay. That call, according to the records, lasted no time. No time. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that the phone call where you say he told you something about Hill Street?
If you will notice, there are 3 phone calls that I didn't know about before that, of which he called me.
Okay.
So we did have a discussion.
Okay. One of them lasted 3 seconds.
So you're switching columns as to how long they last.
ET is the duration, is my understanding.
Okay.
Okay. The first phone call is at 7 in the morning, and that lasts 16 seconds.
That's probably the
That's
phone
not-
call in which we discussed it.
That's not you calling him now. You said it was you calling him.
I called him.
Okay. Is this the phone call that you claim it happened?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, this phone call is 7 o'clock in the morning. He's calling you, and it lasts a grand total of 16 seconds. That's not you calling him, asking him what the hell happened.
No.
The next call lasts 4 seconds. Again, he's calling you. That's not the call either, is it?
There was a call.
Would you answer my question, please?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It's 3 seconds. The phone call's 3 seconds.
Well,
I think it was.
we go from 3 seconds, 16
4
seconds to
seconds.
4 seconds to 3 seconds, and then the 9 o'clock call doesn't last any time. So that's either a hang up or a
Didn't answer.
voicemail or something. And then you have here's one where you call him and it lasts 49 seconds. That's the last time you call him. You said you called him back. The next call is him calling you. So is your testimony inaccurate? That you called him these 2 successive calls?
I would say in the 16-second phone call was when that was discussed. I didn't realize it was him calling me or me calling him. What's the date on that, by the way?
I'm not answering your question, sir. You're answering my question.
Okay. It's been a year and a half.
Well, it has been, but you remember this call, right?
I did say that I remember the call, yes.
During this call that you claim happened, he didn't tell you that he wanted you to tell the police something, did he?
Nope.
He didn't tell you he wanted you to lie to the district attorney, did he?
Nope.
He didn't ask you to tell a lie to anybody, did he?
Nope.
That's correct, is it not?
Correct. No.
And within, you say, an hour or two when you called him back, he said, I just didn't want you to be involved in it. So
Correct.
you're saying he said, I just made up some story so I could get off the phone with you, basically.
No, that's not what he said.
You wouldn't be involved.
That's more like it.
And when he called you back, because he called you, you didn't call him, you now know, correct?
The first call, yes.
When he called you back,
Yes.
that's when he told you, I just didn't want you to get involved, correct? You didn't call him, he called you the second time.
When I called him back, he said, I asked him why, and he said, I did not want to get you involved. And I said I was already involved. The police had talked to me.
The police spoke to you again the next day, the 27th. That's the one,
Yep.
you didn't tell them anything about the call,
No.
correct?
Yes, did not.
Okay. You describe yourself as being Diane McIver's best friend.
Yes.
Okay. I assume you knew her other friends, correct?
A lot of them, yes.
But you were her best friend.
Well, she was my best friend.
I'm asking whether your
I
testimony...
don't know what I was to her. She was my best friend.
You worked with her every day,
Yes.
weekdays, correct?
Yes.
Did you work at the office there?
Yes.
So you were in the Quarry building that we saw the pictures of every day.
Not every day, no.
Obviously, there's some days when you're out on the road, but for however many years, you were there many days a week, let's put it that way.
Many days a week.
And every weekend you played golf with her.
That was available with no rain, no snow, and no sleet. Yes, sir.
And on the golf course, people talk freely and openly. What happens on the golf course stays on the golf course, perhaps, but it's a pretty open conversations you have there, right?
Our golf games were pretty strict because she was a good golfer.
Your observations of Tex McIver and Diane McIver, unquestioned in your mind that they were in love.
Absolutely.
You never saw them having angry words with each other.
I've never heard an angry word come out of Tex's mouth.
And the answer to my question is, with regard to Diane McIver, you never saw him yell at her about something, other than maybe a bad tee shot or something like that, right?
He would have never done that.
And you never saw her yell at him in an angry way, other than
All the time.
why you keep hitting mulligans, right?
All the time.
But that's what the topic was, right?
Right.
Mulligans being a ball going in the woods, right? You never heard her scream at him about money, about Austin, about friction in their family or anything, correct?
Never.
And that includes private conversations, even when the two of them were not present, am I right?
There was never any discussion about their money, about Austin's situation. We just accepted it.
You knew Tex McIver for about 13 years, right?
Yes.
And in those 13 years, never an irate conversation.
When I met him, every time I met him, I kissed him on the cheek and said hi.
You never observed an irate conversation with Diane and Tex, correct?
Not on the golf course.
Or in the office.
Not in the office.
Am I leaving the place out?
Not in the ionosphere.
Not in the ionosphere. All right. Well, I assume by that you mean everywhere. What would you describe as Tex's relationship with Austin?
I would say he assumed the position of being a grandfather or very loving grandfather, whatever.
Austin was the godson of both Diane and Tex, correct?
No. Diane was the godmother.
Was Tex the godfather?
I don't know that.
But he clearly treasured his presence.
Absolutely.
Do you happen to remember Thursday the 22nd?
What year?
2016.
No.
Okay. Do you remember an event when Tex McIver came into the office shortly before Diane McIver died, where he was angry and red-faced?
No.
Do you recall seeing Diane McIver on either that Thursday or Friday?
Would be nothing unusual. I just.
Do you recall an occasion on either that Thursday or a particular Friday where she appeared to be distraught?
About what?
I don't know.
I don't either.
Did you observe her distraught on Friday the 23rd?
Not any more than normal.
She would get distraught at work because, being the CEO of the company, there was probably lots of controversies and business deals and arguments and stuff like that, correct?
She was president of all the companies and
President, I'm sorry, not CEO, right.
and she was feisty.
But you have no recollection on that Friday of her being distraught.
No.
And then on that Friday, you know that Tex and Dani Joe Carter and Tex McIver drove out to the ranch, right?
Well, I know they met me for golf, yeah.
And they were always happy going out there together, correct?
Absolutely.
Any reason to believe that weekend was any different than any other weekend?
Never.
And during that weekend, you played golf with them, so you saw them for hours, right?
Sunday, we started about 2 o'clock till about 6:30.
It was September, and it was hot.
God.
In Georgia, you're in the middle of the state, it was over 90 degrees,
You
wasn't it?
don't, you don't have a piece of paper that shows how hot it was? I don't remember, I have no idea.
And so you were with them beginning at 2 o'clock on the golf course.
Met him at the golf course.
Okay. Was Diane distraught during the golf game, other than
Hurried.
hurried? She doesn't like the slow playing men slowing down her game, correct?
Correct.
But she was not distraught other than typical golfer impatience.
Golf.
correct?
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yes.
She wasn't looking out into space.
No.
There was nothing unusual about her behavior on that day.
Not in my perception, no.
Or Texas.
No.
TEX''S. Not.
Yep. He got his kiss on the cheek, yep.
What's that?
He got his kiss on the cheek.
That's what you bestow upon people.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bestow that upon people when I like them, yes.
My guess is I'm not getting one, right?
No.
After the golf game was over, you all separated, correct?
We're dispersed, yes.
You drove to Conyers, because that's where you lived? Is that
No.
right?
I lived at the lake.
You lived at the lake,
Right.
and they went back to the ranch.
Yes.
And then you rendezvoused at the Longhorns in Conyers.
Yes, sir.
So, though you were with them, presumably they drove on the interstate.
Right.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know.
They drove to the, right. Dani, Joe, Tex, Diane.
They were sitting at the table when I got there.
You drove separately,
Correctly.
but you met at the restaurant.
Yes.
And how much time was there between when the golf game ends and when you meet him at Longhorn?
2 hours.
Okay. And when you met him at Longhorn, did there appear to be a difference in, other than you're not on the golf course anymore, their relationship?
They seemed satiated.
Because they've been eating steak?
Yes. You would too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, did they appear to be angry with each other?
Not at all.
Did there appear to be tempers that were flaring?
No.
Did she appear distraught?
No.
Did she look out into space out the window?
I didn't see her if she did. We couldn't see space anywhere.
Did Tex appear angry,
No.
withdrawn,
No.
solemn,
No.
unhappy?
No.
At dinner, did you have other than being satiated, were you having a typical friendly, convivial dinner?
I think we divided how much we lost on the golf course.
Okay, so you split up the $1 or something?
Yeah.
All right. So it was certainly a peaceful dinner.
Yes.
Was that night different than any other night you spent with them in 13 years?
Yeah, I was sober.
Other than your sobriety?
We ate a meal. We finished. I paid the bill. We walked outside, hugged, kissed, and departed.
Were they talking to each other?
Everybody was talking to everybody.
And dinner ends at, we saw the bill, 9 something, correct? Or 8:50?
9.
9 o'clock, basically. Correct?
9:12, something.
9:12. You didn't get back in your car and think, uh-oh, storm clouds brewing, right?
My car was parked on the other side of the parking lot.
Now, you testified that you had the short, whatever it was, phone call with him, whatever it was, 7 in the morning, correct? Now we're in the morning of the 26th, correct? Monday morning, 26th, correct?
Correct.
And then later he calls you up and says, I didn't want you involved, but yes, it was a shooting and it was an accident, correct?
Correct.
That's what he told you when he told you the truth of what happened, rather than you're claiming the story about Hill
I'm
Street.
going to object.
I'm not claiming the story.
I'm going to object to Mr. Sanders' characterization of what the truth is.
Right. Why don't you just relay what was said, and later you can share with people what you think about it.
Well, what he told you the original call, he later corrected, correct?
When I called
Objection
him.
also to the characterization that he corrected. He's trying to do indirectly what you told him not to do.
He certainly changed it. If you want to ask him if some word was used to describe correction or whatnot, you can do that.
The first call at 7 in the morning that lasted 16 seconds, right? You got to say yes or no for our friend.
Yes.
Later, he tells you a different story, correct, in the afternoon?
After Mr. Quarry told the whole office, yes.
Okay, so Mr. Quarry already knew, correct?
Yes.
And you don't know how many other people Tex had talked to between 7 in the morning or police or whatever that night or
Only hearsay, I wasn't there.
So the afternoon phone call, which actually takes over a minute, right? We looked at that before, right?
Right.
He tells you that it was an accident. That's what he told you, correct?
Nope, it was in the first call in the morning.
I don't mean car accident. I mean, he tells you there was a gunshot in the second call, correct?
We discussed it, yes.
Okay. And did he then tell you it was an accident gunshot?
It was always said that it was an accident,
Referring to the gunshot, not the car accident.
the gunshot.
Okay. And you then have a couple more phone conversations with him over time, and you play golf with him a few times after that, correct?
When I was able to talk to him, yes.
Right. And one of the times, I think you said you went to McDonald's, right?
Yes, second time we played golf.
Second time you played golf. So about when was that? What month do you think that was? Just don't use a point of reference. Just best you can, give us a month.
Have no idea. 3 months, 4 months afterwards.
Well, that would be December. You want to play golf in December?
If it's not raining, snowing, or sleeting.
All right. So you're at the McDonald's, and he asks you about your interview with the police, correct?
A little bit, yeah.
He didn't ask you to lie.
Nope.
He didn't ask you to change your testimony, correct?
Nope.
He didn't tell you what to say at the grand jury.
Nope.
He didn't tell you what to tell the DAs if you ever met with them, correct?
Nope.
He just asked you, what did you say?
Yep.
And there were questions about how much wine he had and other people had during his asking, during the McDonald's dinner where he was asking you these questions, correct?
Basically, how much was the big deal, yeah.
And you told him what you said, correct?
Yep.
And that was the truth, what you told him, correct?
Yep.
And that was the end of the conversation, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
During a other meeting when he asked you about what you said, he told you that he'd fallen asleep in the back seat, correct?
I don't think we ever had that discussion. There was enough, there was enough news.
20 grand jury. What was that? 20 of the grand jury.
Yeah, just Mr. Stevens fall. Okay.
He shuts you in a polite way.
Yeah.
I've already lost my kiss, so it doesn't make much
You ain't getting no kiss. I'm sure we're gonna have to kiss.
Just asking you to refresh your recollection.
I'm trying to. Don't be help. Yes, he did say that to me.
So I'm going to ask you some questions now that your recollection has been refreshed. He told you it was an accident.
Yes.
He told you that he'd fallen asleep in the back of the car.
Yep.
Okay, this is your... Yeah, okay. He told you that he had asked to have the gun by either Diane or Dani Joe to be given to him because they were in a rough part of town, correct?
Correct.
And he put it on his lap, the gun on his lap, correct?
That's what he said, yes.
And then he said evidently the gun went off. That's essentially it. He said, but I wasn't there, right?
Wasn't there?
But that's what he told you, right?
Yes.
He didn't know exactly how the gun had gone off, correct?
He didn't know what
He told you he didn't know how the gun had gone off
had gone off. No, there was, yeah.
because he had fallen asleep, right?
That's what he said.
Sorry. Redirect.
Now, Mr. Stringer, when you said to Mr. Samuel that the defendant told you it was an accident and he, hold on, let me make sure. I have it exactly right. You told Mr. Samuel that the defendant told you it was an accident. That's what you just said, right?
Can I say something? Or
Sure.
By that time, there was enough TV, newspaper, everybody making that statement. But yes, he did.
Okay. And this conversation, when he told you it was an accident, that they were in a rough part of town, they were fearing for their life, and they pulled the gun out the pocket of the car in a Publix bag and put it on his lap, and evidently the gun went off. When did he tell you that?
Have no idea.
Was it the first Monday when you talked to him?
Possibly that same day that we talked for 49 minutes.
49 seconds?
Whatever, 49 seconds, whatever. I don't know. But he did discuss that and say that.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But now, you never told that story to the police when you talked to them the next day, right?
I didn't know it.
Right. So my question to you is, he told you that version of the story much later, didn't he?
Later, yes.
Yeah. And by that time, as you said, there had been many media reports, right?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you this. When you talked to the defendant on the day you learned that Diane McIver had passed away, did you speak to him each time on your cell phone?
Yes.
Okay.
Phone I have.
Did you ever speak with him from the phones at Quarry Corporation while you were at work?
Look at your own sheet. It says everything was from my cell phone.
Okay. My question to you, sir, is do you recall speaking to him from any of the phones at Quarry?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Is it possible?
Very possible. That's where I work.
Overruled.
You just don't remember.
I don't know, remember.
Okay. Mr. Samuel asked you how were things going at dinner that night, and you said everything was fine. You talked to us about how feisty Diane was. Did she say anything to the defendant that night while you were at dinner that you recall? Did she holler at him about anything?
No.
How about his weight?
Not that night.
But you had known him to do that.
Absolutely.
Did she say anything to him about the bowl of salad that he had? You remember that?
That he ate too much of it.
Do you know who Steve Maples is? Steve Maples.
No. Not that I know of.
All the times you've been out to the ranch, have you ever seen him out at the ranch?
I don't know.
You don't even know who he is? Right.
Outside the scope of crime.
Who is he?
No, it's
You
okay.
don't get, I know you have lots of questions. Some other time, maybe you'll corner these folks and ask them questions.
Okay.
But now you just get to answer.
I think Mr. Samuel asked you about the fact that you never heard Diane McIver argue with her husband about money, right?
Never.
As close as you were with her, did you know anything about any of the loans that she gave Mr. McIver?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Nope.
So as close as you were, she didn't share that with you, right?
I knew about the one she gave me.
Right. Because she would give you loans, right?
Very closely, I knew that. Yes.
Yeah. Did you have to pay him back?
Are you kidding? Yes.
Explain that to the jury, how she was about loans to her close friends. You got to sit up, Mr. Stringer, and you got to face the jurors and talk to them.
It was always gentle when we were making the arrangements. It got heavier later.
And did she charge you interest?
Lots.
Did you get the impression that she was kind of kidding when she loaned you money?
I think she valued the money that she had.
Mr. Samuel asked you if Ms. McIver seemed distraught on Thursday or Friday before you played golf with them back in September of 2016. Did you see Diane McIver on those days, Thursday or Friday?
I have no idea, honestly.
Right. So when he asked you whether or not she appeared distraught, you don't even know if you saw her, right?
I don't even know. It's been a week or so.
And this might seem like a common sense question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. You really don't have any idea of knowing what goes on between Diane McIver and her husband when they are not in your presence, right?
How would I?
Right. That's my point. That's all my questions.
Okay. All right. If there are any questions from the jurors, if you don't recall how it works, jot them down legibly and A+ on penman or pencilmanship for all of you. Pass your cards to the left, and I'll take over from there. As well as the gunshot story on the same day. Did you get those two versions of events on the same day?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain to the jurors why you picked up the tab at Longhorn?
Because Diane had picked up the tab for the last 17 years.
Okay. Was it in your mind a business dinner or a personal dinner?
It's a personal dinner.
Mr. Rucker, any follow-up based on those questions?
No, sir.
No, Your Honor. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stringer. You're free to go. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
The water's on us.
Thank you. I thought I'd get a bill.
Wade, or you need to do you believe anything will change by the time we conclude Mr. Wade's testimony?
I'm the person that created the demonstrative.
Oh, okay. So you'll be laying foundation through a whole other witness rather than there being a stipulation.
Right.
Okay. Joel Wade, got it.
Okay. So I totally misunderstood. I apologize. The discussion this morning was that we would do it outside the presence of the jury during the break, and we would take up court time to do it.
Okay. Do we need to take a break now, or it's something we can get on the record?
We can get on the record
during the
later.
break?
Let me get on with Ms. Carter.
Well, Mr. Harvey, you're okay getting on the record at some point today some aspects of both sides' thoughts concerning the demonstrative the state wants to use with Ms. Carter?
Well, I don't want them to use it before I have questions, that we answer questions about it. That's the rub.
Okay, before you ask who? Ask me questions about it? Ask the state about it?
I'll ask the witness that prepared it,
Okay. So then we ought to have Mr. Wade come on in.
which is what I said earlier.
Okay. So let's get Mr. Wade in here. We've gone around enough times. This will be the way we'll move forward. And then we'll get Ms. Carter in here.
Right.
Can we approach Judge?
Okay.
If you're Mr. Wade, sit tight right, or stand tight right there for 1 second.
In here at some point. So if you wait outside for whoever's been asking you to come inside to give you further instructions. Appreciate your patience. And we need Ms. Carter to come on in. And then lock the door so she can't leave. We'll get forward with a witness.
Will you raise your right hand? Do you swear to affirm that the testimony you should give the court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Yes, ma'am. Would you will? Have a seat. Get as close to the mic as you can. For the purposes of the court's record, please state and spell your name.
Do you want Dani Jo Carter or Patricia Allen?
We need your official legal
Official-
name, and then if the attorneys want to explore nicknames or names people know you by, that's great. But if you would state for the record what will be on, say, your driver's license
Driver's
or something like
license.
that.
Patricia D. Carter, Patricia Diane Carter. It's Patricia, Diane, Diane, Carter, Carter.
So, Ms. Carter, a couple things before we get started. If you could move a little closer to the microphone and maybe pull the microphone down a little bit so we can hear your soft-spoken voice. And then number two, I saw that you brought some things up with you. It's fine for stuff to be there. Can you have it all face down? And then if at any point you feel like you need to refer to it, you need to let whoever's asking you questions know that you're going to look at something so that the attorneys can understand what it is you're looking at.
Okay.
So to be clear, I'm not saying don't look at whatever it is you brought with you. You are able to do that, but you need to tell folks, I need to look at X because of Y, whatever it is. Otherwise, we'll just rely on what you remember. Okay? Great. Mr. Ruckle.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Is that chair low?
It feels real low.
If you stand up for a second, let me see if I can adjust it for you. It looks low. Okay. So it looks like that's as high as it's going to go. Okay.
It's a little better.
Is that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we start out by having you look at the jurors? I want you to introduce yourself to them by telling them your name.
I'm Dani Jo Carter, or Patricia Diane Carter. But
Okay. And you typically go by Dani Jo.
correct.
Okay. And so for the purposes of your testimony here today, is it okay if I just call you Dani Jo Carter?
Yes.
Okay. And I apologize for asking you this in advance. My mama told me never to ask a woman her age, but I would like for you to share with the jurors that, and there's a reason why I'm doing it.
Okay.
All right.
You're not the first person he's asked. He's not picking on you.
Thank you. I'm 62.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors a little bit about your educational background and your work history?
Okay. I went to DeKalb College and got my master's in cosmetology. And for years I did nails. And when there were only 3 nail salons in Atlanta, if you can imagine that, because they're on every street corner now. And in the last couple of years, I learned permanent cosmetics, which is tattooing, eyeliner and eyebrows, and I do makeup for weddings, photography, for somebody that's doing their website or something like that.
Okay. And how long do you think you've been in like the beauty and cosmetic industry?
41 years.
41 years. Can you tell the jurors at or near the time of this incident were you actually working in a salon?
Yes.
And generally speaking, where was the salon located?
In Buckhead.
And you did the kind of work that you described at the salon?
Yes.
At that time? Okay. Currently, what kind of work are you doing? How are you working now?
I go mobile to my clients' homes.
Now, let me ask you, are you married?
Yes.
What's your husband's name?
Tom.
Tom Carter.
Thomas Lee Carter.
Thomas Lee Carter. And do you and Mr. Carter have any children?
No.
And can you tell the jurors, when did you get married to Mr. Carter?
When I was 44.
You know the year?
It was 2000. That's how I can remember
Okay.
how many years I've been married.
Okay. And generally speaking, what part of town do you and your husband live in?
Dunwoody.
And are you originally from the Metro Atlanta area?
I was born in Augusta and then grew up in Newnan, but I've been in Atlanta for 54 years.
54 years in Atlanta. And what part of Atlanta primarily?
Dunwoody. I live about a mile from where I lived for 18 years.
Now, I want to ask you, did you become acquainted with Diane McIver? Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did you know that to be her true, correct, and legal name?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors When did you become acquainted with Diane McIver, and how you became acquainted with her?
I was working at a salon at North Lake, and her office was in Conyers. And I was still in school at the time, and I worked there during the week. And one of the girls asked me if I would take this client of hers that she'd gotten that wanted to come in late. And I didn't like to go in early and work late, so I started doing Diane's nails 41 years ago. And because I was the only one that would stay late. And we would go out to dinner. I'm not sure exactly when we started that, but we would go out to dinner after we finished. And she came in every week. So we spent 3 or 4 hours together every week for quite a few years and became friends.
Okay. Did you know her to be a person who was a stickler about appointments?
She was very much a stickler about appointments. She kept appointments, canceled them. She expected you to do the same thing. And she would usually get to an appointment about 5 minutes early, and if you were 5 minutes late, she had been there for half an hour.
Okay. And so over the course of the 40 plus years that you knew her, when you talked to her, how would you refer to her? What would you call her?
Diane.
Okay. And you all shared the same name because your middle name is Diane.
Yes, and I went by Diane until I went to work I worked at 2 salons at one time, and there was another Diane that actually did Diane's hair there. So they made me use another name that was a nickname, and it stuck.
Okay. Now, over those span of those years, as best you can, I'd like you to describe for the jurors your relationship with Diane McIver.
Well, after we became friends, which was kind of unusual because we were really different, because I am not as punctual or as organized as she is. And but we did go into dinner all the time. Then I started going to the functions at her company where they had parties or grand openings or something, and I got to know everybody at her office. And she had a wonderful house out in Conyers that had a swimming pool and eventually horses and a barn and a good bit, about five acres of property there in Conyers. And
This was before her marriage to the defendant?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, this was over 30 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember when she built that house, and it was really a wonderful house. We went out there when the foundation was going up and the walls were going up, and it was a really neat house.
So it's just fair to say that you all spent a lot of time together?
Yes, we were both a little estranged from our families, and so we became more like sisters. I went out there almost every weekend. She was usually dating someone for long periods of time. I think they call them serial monogamous, but she would date someone for long periods, and the men that she dated for 5 to 6 years always had kids, so we would have a lot of kids' weekends. She loved children.
Now, can you tell the jurors, did you love Diane?
Like a sister.
And you said that you all were both estranged from your families. What do you mean by that?
Well, my father was an alcoholic.
I think this would call for a hearsay response. So let me make this point plus relevant.
Maybe we should approach.
Okay, we can. Let me just tell you my ruling preliminarily, then we can approach. I think for this witness to talk about her own situation would be okay, but then we get into the area of relevance to talk about Ms. McIver's. Then the other concern Mr. Harvey had comes in.
And let me ask you this. At the time of Diane McIver's death, were her parents alive?
No,
Did she have any brothers and sisters that were living?
no.
And she didn't have any children.
No.
Now, did there come a point in time when you became acquainted with the defendant?
Yes.
And do you remember when that would have been and how that occurred?
Yes, it was probably sometime it was right before I got married. Because I got married in April of 2000, and we had parties afterwards that were in the summer, May and June, and one of those parties was their first date.
I think this is way beyond the scope of the question. I think the question called for time for.
I asked her when and how.
Okay, we got into the how. You can keep going. You just laying some set in there.
Yeah. So, can you tell the jurors, do you know when Diane McIver and the defendant got married? You remember what year?
November 5th of 2005.
Okay. So they dated for a few years before they got married. Is that fair?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors, in 2005, where was Diane McIver living at that time?
In the condo in Buckhead, and they were at the ranch also.
Okay. And so in 2000, when you knew them to begin their relationship, is that when you learned about the existence of the ranch out in Putnam County?
In the beginning of their...
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And did you have the occasion to visit the ranch before they got married?
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe for the jurors, what did it look like before they got married?
Well, the house was there. It's a Victorian house, and the property was there. It was a nice, big Victorian house, and
Right. Was the saloon there?
no, the saloon was not there.
Okay. And was the pool in good condition?
It was an older pool that had a liner in it.
Okay. And so, did you know Diane McIver to make improvements to the property once she began her relationship with the defendant?
Yes.
What kind of improvements were made to the property?
Well, they built the saloon, which was a big building. I was told that it was over $1 million, but it was a...
Okay. It's a fair objection.
Did you-
want to give Ms. Carter some guidance? I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Did you learn that from the defendant, conversations with the defendant while he was in the presence of Diane?
I'm not sure. There were a lot of meetings with contractors and landscape people, so it was probably with both of them.
Okay. I'll overrule it, given that answer.
Now, sorry.
Keep going.
Right. Can you tell the jurors, in 2005, the saloon is built in time for the wedding, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, when Diane got married in 2005, you all had been friends about how long at that time?
You're making me add 30-something years.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors that you remained friends consistently as close friends for that entire 30-year period before she got married?
No, there was a period of time where I developed a problem with alcohol, and she distanced herself from me. I had an alcoholic father. We both knew people that were alcoholics, and our history was that they made everybody miserable and then they died. So she distanced herself from me, which broke my heart.
And can you give the jurors some idea along this timeline when that would have occurred and how long did it last?
Yes, it was September of 2005 because it was right before the wedding. And 2005, 2006, 7, 8 or 9 years.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you eventually kind of reconnect and reestablish a relationship with
Yes.
Diane McIver?
Yes, we did.
And had anything changed about you that allowed that reconnection to occur?
I was sober.
In fact, can you tell the jurors, had Diane McIver cut you off to the extent that you were not allowed to come to her wedding to the defendant?
Well, when she said she distanced herself from me, we didn't speak after that at all.
Now, can you help the jurors understand a little bit about her personality? How would you characterize it?
Well, she was a lot of fun. She was intense. She played hard, and but she could be difficult. Because she was very pragmatic about appointments, times, things that you did, how you were eating, she could be difficult,
Okay.
along with being very loving.
Now, who is Austin Swall?
Austin's Diane's godson.
Okay. And did you come to have an opinion about how she felt about Austin?
Oh, she loved him like a son.
And in loving him like a son, how did she treat him?
Like a son or a grandson.
She took care of him.
Oh, yes.
Do you know whether or not she took care of some of his needs financially?
Yes, I do.
And what kinds of things would she do for Austin financially?
Well, she had a savings account for him because she had one. She was also my great niece's godmother, who is 6 now, and she and Austin are great friends. But I knew that she had a tutor that was there, Miss Johnny, on a regular basis, and her housekeeper, Phyllis Gable, would pick Austin up from school so that his mother didn't. His mother worked, and she didn't have to go and do that. And I think she even paid for some of the school. And huge birthday parties.
I'm sorry?
Huge birthday parties.
Huge birthday parties.
Huge.
Now, is it your great niece that is?
Ava.
Ava, that's her name?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, did you know anything about Diane's desire to leave the ranch to Austin?
Yes.
What is your concern, the basis for the answer she's going to give?
State's not requiring evidence yet. So I'm objecting to the form of the question.
That has already been testified to, and we know it's coming.
Okay. Well, why don't you ask it again, and I'll assess it.
Okay. Okay. Did you know anything about Diane's desire to leave the ranch to Austin when she passed?
Same objection, same question.
Well, I'm glad it was close to the same question because I asked you to ask what you asked before.
Passed was the only word I had.
I'll allow.
Did you know anything about
Yes.
that? Yes.
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors, how did she feel about the ranch?
Oh, she loved the ranch.
Okay.
She totally loved the ranch. I loved the ranch.
Say it again.
I loved the ranch.
Why?
It's a great place to go. Outside, outdoors, riding horses and shooting guns out, shooting range. It was just a great, relaxing place to go.
Had you ever had the occasion to be at the ranch when Austin was there?
A lot.
A lot. So, let me just ask you, so, if you know they met in 2000, and the date of this incident was 2016, about how many times in that period do you believe you have been to the ranch in Putnam County?
From what period to what period?
2000 to 2016, September 25th.
Probably hundreds.
Hundreds of times. And can you tell the jurors, in those hundreds of times of visiting the ranch out in Putnam County, how many times have you traveled to the ranch in the same vehicle with Diane McIver and the defendant?
I don't believe that ever happened.
No.
But before, not that I can recall, because I was usually coming from one area of town and picking up Ava, and they were coming from another, downtown.
And so September the 23rd of 2016 would have been the first time in hundreds of visits in 16 years that you would have actually traveled.
Again, let me object to the form of this question. It's just repeating the answer.
Well, I can cut it up, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll refer you.
But the objection wasn't so much, I heard the objection to be asked and answered effectively. He didn't use those magic words, but that's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
You didn't like it before, that's why I was trying not to use it.
Okay.
That was last week.
Right.
All right, I'll go with it this week.
Let me ask you this. On September the 25th, 2016, the Sunday of this event, would that have been the first time that you would have traveled from the ranch in Putnam County back to Atlanta in the same vehicle with Diane McIver and the defendant?
To the best of my recollection, yeah, that's the only time.
The only time.
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, when it came to Diane's finances, was she a private person about those things, or would she share her financial situations with you?
No, she pretty much kept them private.
She kept them private. Did you have any idea how much money Diane had?
No.
And would she share the intimate details about her finances with the defendant? You know anything about his finances?
No.
But how often were you around them, would you say, once you got back into Diane's life?
Quite a bit. I went out there a couple of weekends, sometimes every other weekend. Sometimes I wouldn't go out there but one weekend a month.
Okay. Would you take trips together
Yes.
with Diane and the defendant?
Yes.
What kind of trips would you all take?
Well, we went to Paris and South France and skiing in Colorado and snowmobiling in Yellowstone.
Who paid for those trips? Did you pay for them?
No.
But you got to go.
Yes.
At whose invitation?
Diane. Sometimes Tex would invite me, but Diane's.
And so, given kind of what you experienced and what you saw, what was your impression about Diane's financial status at the time of her death?
And let me object to the question, please.
The objection is to the inquiry into impression.
Okay. Because at the time of her death, you really didn't know anything about her finances, right?
No, I did not.
Okay. And likewise for her husband, right?
No.
Okay. Now, I want to talk to you about the week of September the 23rd until the end of the weekend, September 25th, okay?
Okay.
And if you could explain to the jurors what was the plan for traveling to the ranch that weekend?
Well, this was one time that I knew in advance that my husband was going to be out of town because he was going to the Georgia Ole Miss game with his fraternity brothers. About they do a road trip. So, and I wasn't going to take Ava, so I didn't have to drive to Beaufort and then drive back to down to Eatonton. And so I asked them if I could come down there and ride with them so that I wasn't driving by myself. If I was with Ava, she was a lot of entertainment, so it was just, since it was just going to be the three of us, we made arrangements to meet at her office.
Okay. And what day were you scheduled to leave to go to the ranch?
Friday afternoon.
Okay. Friday, September 23rd?
Correct.
And normally, would Ava and Austin travel to the ranch on the weekend?
Yes.
That was a frequent occurrence.
Yes.
Except this weekend, you understood that Austin and Ava weren't going.
Yes, I'm not sure why Austin wasn't, so I really wanted to go down there and ride horses and do my own thing without having to watch it after I guess she was 4.5 at that point. So they didn't go.
Okay. So, where did you all meet in order to leave to go to the Putnam County Ranch on Friday?
At Diane's office at Quarry.
Okay. And what time did you get there?
Oh, probably around 4:30, 4:30.
Okay. How did you get there?
Janie Calhoun and I took an Uber to, she was going to the airport, so we took an Uber to the office. They just dropped me off, and then she went on to the airport.
Okay. Might seem like an odd question, but I want to ask you, do you remember what you were wearing on that Friday?
No, I know what I was wearing that Sunday, but I don't know what I was wearing Friday.
Okay. And so, can you tell the jurors, when you got to Diane's office that Friday afternoon around 4:30, was she in the office?
She was in the office.
Was the defendant already there?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, what happened when you got to the office?
We went into her office, and then we went back into Mr. Corey's office.
Okay.
And Tex got there at some point.
Okay. And then when he arrived, did you leave immediately to go to the ranch?
No, we sat back in Mr. Corey's office, and they all had a glass of wine. I was drinking water.
Okay. Because up to that day, you had not had a drink in how long?
Almost 10 years.
10 years.
Or over 10 years. It was over 10 years.
Okay. And when they were drinking wine, do you remember what color it was?
That day, it was red.
You saw the defendant drinking red wine?
Sir?
You saw the defendant drinking red wine that Friday
Yes,
afternoon?
They all drank out of the same bottle.
They all drank out of the same bottle. Do you recall how much wine was consumed on that
No,
Friday afternoon?
no.
How long did you remain in the office before you left to go down to the ranch?
Probably half hour, 45 minutes.
And then how did you travel down to the ranch? What kind of vehicle?
The expedition,
What color was it?
white,
Who drove down to the ranch?
I did.
And can you tell the jury what was the positions in the vehicle that everybody occupied?
Going down there?
Going down there on Friday.
Well, I was driving. Diane was probably sitting in the front seat, and Tex was probably in the. I don't remember driving down there. But probably Diane was sitting in the front because we
You
were
think-
always talking.
Okay. Are you pretty sure that you drove down there?
I'm positive I drove down there
Okay. And why did you drive?
because they had been drinking wine.
Because they had been drinking wine. So can you tell the jurors how long does it take to get from Atlanta down to the Putnam County Ranch?
About an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour. Depends on how the traffic is and how fast you're driving.
Okay. And pretty much you go down Wood Expressway.
20 east,
Okay.
and then, yeah, you get off, and it's back roads in the country.
Back roads in country. Okay. And can you tell the jurors anything remarkable happened in the vehicle on the way down to the ranch on Friday afternoon?
No,
Okay. And anything remarkable happened down at the ranch on Friday night?
no,
Friday night at the ranch, which part of the Putnam County property did you sleep in?
in Austin's room, upstairs,
And which part of the property was Austin's room located?
in the main house.
In the main house. Saturday morning, you get up, anything remarkable happened Saturday morning?
No, we had coffee and breakfast.
Coffee and breakfast. You did not see any tension or animosity between Diane McIver and the defendant, right?
Correct.
What happened on Saturday?
Oh, after we had breakfast, Javier, who's the caretaker, came and drove us. We ran a couple of errands, and Diane was very annoyed with me because I kept fooling with my phone because it wouldn't work. Nobody could hear me. It would work. I could try to call, but everybody said I sounded like I was talking underwater. And I kept trying to get, I used Diane's phone to try to get to AT&T, and they said I needed to update, but you couldn't update because there was no...
Stop for a second.
Well, no, I don't.
I didn't think you did.
I know. This answer is a steady stream of hearsay, and I object to it, move to strike, and we'll go from there.
It's a valid objection. I know the thrust of your case was AT&T communicating with the phone or whatnot, but
No, but it does go to explain an issue.
okay, but you can ask her about whether her phone was working as opposed to
I understand.
AT&T said X and Y. So,
I get it.
ladies and gentlemen, insofar as you jotted down or recall anything Ms. Carter said, you didn't do anything wrong. Okay. She said people told her about the phone or this or that. Please disregard that. And pivot back to you, Mr. Rucker.
Right. You were having problems with your phone,
Yes.
and you called AT&T about it.
Let me object to the judge's question. I mean, it's just flat leaving.
I'm trying to clear up.
Well, I don't hear what you're trying to do.
I'm not asking you
It's
to.
still
I'm not
That's
asking
an
you.
objectionable question, regardless of what he's trying to do. Just because he's trying to do it doesn't mean it's correct.
Okay. Just because you can object to something doesn't mean you should object to
And
something.
again, just because you can say something doesn't mean you should either.
But I just did, so you can take a seat and
I'll rephrase the question.
the difference is
I know.
were you versus you were. But I'm going to ask you to structure these more as the open-ended questions on direct exam. You're going to get to where you need to get to anyway, and we'll avoid the objections.
Were you having problems with your phone?
I was.
As
Yes.
a result, what did you do?
Called AT&T.
And were you able to correct the problem with your phone after speaking to AT&T?
No.
At any point in time during the weekend, was it your impression that your phone was working properly?
No. It was not.
It wasn't.
No.
So, Saturday night, can you tell the jurors, was there anything remarkable about Saturday night?
No.
Sunday morning, anything remarkable about Sunday morning?
No.
So Sunday, can you tell the jurors what was the plan with respect to how that day was supposed to be kind of conducted?
Diane and Tex were going to play golf. I'm not sure which golf course they were going to play at. And I was going to stay there and wait for this young couple that comes and exercises the horses every week, I think, to ride with me, because it's really no fun. Well, it's not any fun for me to ride by myself. So, and then we were going to meet at the house probably around, I think it was 6 o'clock, and head out back to Atlanta.
What was the name of the young couple? You know?
Samantha and Tanner,
And had you seen them at the ranch on other occasions?
many, yes.
And so can you tell the jurors, did the defendant and Diane McIver actually go play golf?
Yes, as far as I know.
They left the ranch.
Yes.
And you know what time they left?
I think it was probably somewhere around noon.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but that's usually when Tanner and Sam get there.
Okay. So when Diane McIver and the defendant left to go play golf or left the ranch, what did you do?
I went down and rode horses for 3 or 4 hours with Sam and Tanner.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, at some point in time, did they leave the ranch, Sam and Tanner?
They did.
Did they leave before the McIvers returned back from wherever they had been?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors about what time did they get back?
I think it was around 6 o'clock, sometime between 6 and 6:30.
And did you all leave immediately to go back to Atlanta, or did you stay for a little while at the ranch?
No, we left pretty quickly. We left real quickly because they didn't take showers.
They didn't even take showers.
No.
Can you tell the jurors where? Well, did you have to pack and that kind of thing?
We were packed and everything, that was part of the plan. Everything's ready at the door to go to put it in the car when they came back, because they'd gone in another vehicle, because I still had the King Ranch, and because I was running some errands.
Okay. There were other vehicles there at the ranch.
Yes.
And so when they got back, you pretty much didn't linger very long before you left.
No.
And so when you left the ranch, where did you go?
Straight to Longhorn.
And where's the Longhorn located?
Conyers.
Who drove to the Longhorn?
Diane.
What position did you occupy in the vehicle?
I was in the front passenger seat,
And where was the defendant?
in the back, behind me.
Behind the passenger seat.
Yes.
Now, can you tell the jury, on the way to Longhorn, was there any drinking going on?
Yes, there was a to-go, a roadie in a Yeti. I don't know what you call those things. The silver tumbler, like with a top on it.
And what was in it?
Red wine.
And who was drinking the red wine?
They were sharing it back and forth.
And by sharing it back and forth, they would pass it back and forth, you mean?
Yes.
How long does it take to get from the ranch in Putnam County to the Longhorn?
About an hour.
And can you tell the jury, was there drinking going on during that entire trip? How would you describe it? What do you remember?
I don't really remember how many times it went back and forth, but they were drinking it on the way there.
Okay. What happened when you arrived at Longhorn?
We got out and went in the restaurant, and it was pretty full for a Sunday night, and it was going to be about 15 minutes before we could get a table, and I was starving. Diane, I got the impression that she...
Sure. Okay. Let me direct you better with a question. Were you able to be seated immediately?
No.
So what did you do?
I said, let's go to the bar and get a drink. So we went to the bar, and they ordered a glass of wine, and I got water.
You had water.
Yes.
Was there a little frustration in the group because the table wasn't immediately ready?
A bit.
Okay. Is that why you made the suggestion about going to the bar?
Yes, I was hungry and I wanted a steak.
You were hungry, you wanted a steak.
Yes.
So how long do you think you remained at the bar before your table was ready?
10 to 15 minutes.
Do you recall Diane McIver and the defendant drinking one glass of wine, and they had one glass of wine apiece?
Yes.
Did you see them drink any more than that at the bar?
No.
Once you all were seated at the table, can you tell the jurors what happened?
We waited for Craig Stringer to get there. He had played golf with them that afternoon. And he was a little late. He said he...
That's all right.
Okay.
Yeah. He said something.
Yes.
Right. He's learning. He said something, right?
Right.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did you all go ahead and order the meal? You remember?
Before Mr. Stringer got there?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. You think you waited until he got there?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And let me see. Let me test your memory. Do you remember what you ordered?
Yes.
What did you order?
A petite filet Pittsburgh style.
Okay. Do you remember what the others ordered?
Tex had a salad with steak on it. I think Diane had salmon. I don't remember what Craig had.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, was there more wine drinking at the table?
Yes, they ordered a bottle of wine.
And can you tell the jurors who drank?
Well, Tex and Diane did because Craig and I don't drink.
Can you tell the jurors how much did you see Tex and Diane drink individually?
I don't know how much they had.
Okay.
But no, I don't.
Okay. Do you know whether or not they finished the bottle? Do you know?
I do not know that.
Okay. How long do you believe you remained at dinner before you left?
A couple of hours.
How was the environment at the table?
It was very pleasant. They were talking about golf.
Now, can you tell the jury, do you have any specific recollection about whether or not there were any glasses of wine left at the table when you all got up to leave?
There was a full glass of red wine.
You remember that?
Yes.
And whose full glass of red wine was it?
Texas.
Okay. So what happened when the group got up to leave? Did you all get up to leave together?
Yes.
And so where did you go?
Out to the parking lot.
And what happened once you got out into the parking lot?
I got into the driver's side, and Diane got into the front passenger side.
And can you tell the jury, was there some conversation about that arrangement before you got into the vehicle? Because you didn't drive to the restaurant, correct?
No.
So was there some conversation about the fact that you were going to drive back to Atlanta?
I think Diane just handed me the keys. When we left the ranch, I think she said, I'll drive to the restaurant, you can drive from there.
In your opinion, at the time that you all got into the vehicle, did Diane appear to be intoxicated?
No.
How about the defendant?
No.
So what happened next?
We got in the car and hit 20 to head back to Atlanta.
Okay. And did you guys make any stops along the way?
No.
Was there any additional drinking from the Yeti that was in the car on the way to Atlanta?
I don't believe there was.
How long do you think it took for you to get back downtown?
Just somewhere around 20 minutes.
Were you driving the normal posted speed limits, or were you going a little faster, a little slower?
I was probably driving the speed limit because that vehicle's big and I drive a smaller car.
And so, can you tell the jurors on the way headed downtown what was going on inside of the vehicle?
Diane and I were talking. After 40 years, we could always find something to talk about.
Say it one more time.
We could always find something to talk about, even after 40 years.
Okay. And can you tell the jury what was the defendant doing in the back?
I don't know.
Was he participating in the conversation?
Not that I recall.
Did you believe that he might have been asleep?
Possibly.
And so about what time is it when you think that you would have been heading downtown and would have kind of crossed into Fulton County?
Somewhere between 9:30 and 10 o'clock.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when you were on I-20 headed downtown, did anybody have to give you directions in order for you to get to where you were going?
No.
And where was the intended destination?
To the condo in Buckhead.
And for the jurors who haven't seen it yet or heard about it yet, where is the condo located?
It's a block off of Peachtree and a block off of Lenox.
If you were going to Lenox Square Mall, about how far is it from Lenox Square Mall?
It's right across the street. Her bedroom window framed where the tree is. So she could look right out of her window and see the Christmas tree.
At the mall?
At the mall. It was a block on that side of Lenox.
And so which way were you intending to go after you came down I-20?
75, 85.
Going in what direction?
North.
And you would have taken 75, 85 north to what exit?
to the 400
Okay.
exit probably.
And then take a left or a right?
Oh, gosh. I'm addicted to GPS. Right.
Okay.
No?
Okay. So can you tell the jurors, is it dark by the time you hit the connector?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And what was going on in the vehicle at that time?
Diane and I were just talking.
Any conversation from the defendant?
No.
And so which way did you travel?
When we got off of
At
20, we started to get on the connector, and right as we got on the connector, there was a lot of traffic.
Okay. Did you know the reason for the traffic? Did
They
you know?
were.
At the time, did you know?
I realized when we saw it that they were paving the downtown connector that weekend.
Okay. So what did you do?
I said we need to get off of here and go up Peachtree or something, because there were 8 lanes of traffic and it was just brake lights.
Your thought was to get off the connector,
Connector.
7585 North, and go to Peachtree.
Yes,
Why Peachtree?
because I go up and down Peachtree all the time and it just goes north and south, and I don't need the GPS.
Okay. Did you say that out loud, or did you just think it to yourself?
No, I said we need to get off here and go up Peachtree.
Who did you say that to?
Diane.
Did she say anything back to you? Don't tell me what she said just yet, but did she say anything back to you?
Not to me.
Okay. Who did she say something to?
Tex.
And when she said something to Tex, did he say something back to her?
No.
Did he respond in any way
No.
that you knew of?
No.
Can you tell the jury, where was your focus directed?
Oh, toward the first exit ramp, because there was nobody on it.
What is the first exit ramp?
Edgewood, Auburn Avenue.
And so did you say something to Diane?
No.
Did she say something to you?
No.
So what did you do?
I think I asked her which way, if we wanted to get off at this exit, but I wanted to get off that road.
Okay. And in getting off that road, did you have any idea which way you should go in order to get up into Buckhead? Did you know?
Not a clue.
Not a clue.
No.
So when you got off, did Diane say something?
Well, she told me to get off at that exit.
Okay.
That's right, she did. She told me to get off at that exit.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, when you got off that exit, what did you do?
I exited. I just made sure that that's the exit that she wanted me to get off on, because I don't know that I've ever gotten off on that exit before.
Okay. How far is that exit from where Diane McIver worked at the Quarry building?
Very close. So yes.
Very close.
Yes. She had guided me on back roads around there before.
So you had a sense that she was familiar with the area?
Yes.
Now, when you exited off of that Edgewood, Auburn Avenue exit, did you travel down the off-ramp?
Yes.
And once you traveled and you got to the end of the ramp, what did you do?
We turned left.
And while you were at the bottom of the off ramp, can you tell the jurors, did you see any large crowds of people gathered around or anything like that?
No.
Did you see anyone who was approaching the car?
No.
And can you tell the jurors, when you exited off the off-ramp, did the defendant say anything?
As we were exiting and we were on the off-ramp, he said, "Girls, I wish you hadn't have done this. This is a really bad area. You should have just stayed on 85.
And then what happened after he said that?
We continued to the end of the ramp where there's a traffic light.
Okay. And did Diane say anything back to him?
Not after he said that.
Did you say anything back to him?
No.
When you made the left, which way did you go? Off the ramp. When you made the left, which way did you go?
Like on a road?
Yeah, did you go straight?
No, I went left.
Okay, when you made the left, did you go straight?
Straight, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I thought it was a good question.
Okay.
Trick question.
It was. And you followed that road. When you were on that road, did you know it to be Edgewood?
No.
You didn't. But whatever road it was, did you keep straight?
Correct.
And was somebody guiding you?
Diane.
Understanding what we discussed at the bench now is probably
It's a good time to break.
a good time.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to break for lunch now. Let's try to be back. Mr. Harvey, we have to do some work while you guys are gone. How long do you expect? 5 minutes? 10? No, I just, so I'm going to build in a little extra time. Less than 10. Okay. Why don't you all try to be back by 1:10? 1:10. And we'll get started as soon as all of you are. If you're back a little early, we may be in a position to continue with the direct examination of Ms. Carter. Enjoy your break. We'll talk about the case. Stay away from the media. I mean, physically, obviously, because there are media people here, but also on your phones, etc. You have a wonderful lunch, whether it's Freshman's or somewhere else, and we'll see you close to 1:10. Thank you so much.
All rise for the jurors.
Ms. Carter, I'm going to excuse you for lunch now as well. It's important that during the lunch break you do not talk with anyone about your testimony, what's been asked of you so far, or anything about the incident. That doesn't mean that you have to just be by yourself between now and a little bit after 1, but just don't talk about what you've been discussing now or anything else about the case. Okay? Thank you so much. You can head on out. And I think we need Mr. Wade. There were 2 Wades. I think we were hearing from Joel, but whichever Wade you guys want.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Great. I see him. Hey, Mr. Wade, I promised we'd get you back in here because I know you wanted to be in here. You can come on up, and if you would stand where you were waiting before, Deputy Murphy's going to ask you or tell you something, and then we'll get started.
Okay. Sir, if you will, face me, raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you should give the court today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, sir, if you will. Have a seat. Get as close to the mic as you can. For the purposes of the court's record, please state and spell your name.
Joel Wade, Joel Wade.
Mr. Harvey, do you want to ask the questions you've got? Were you expecting the state was going to ask some questions first so we can streamline this?
That's what I was expecting.
Okay, Ms. Griffin.
Good afternoon. Where are you currently employed?
Woodward Academy.
And what do you do there?
Work in facilities, mechanical, landscaping, a lot of different things.
Okay, and do you have your own business?
I used to.
Okay, and what type of business was that?
Auto body,
Okay. Did you say auto body?
auto paint and body work.
Okay. And were you contacted by our office to create a demonstrative of a white expedition?
I was.
And could you please describe to the court how you created it?
Basically, once I got the seats,
I'm going to interrupt for a second. Is the demonstrative a whole expedition, or is it just the seats, or what were you asked to build?
a platform to hold the seats, the interior seats of the expedition.
Okay, there's no engine or anything like
No,
that?
no.
Okay.
Could you please describe the process that you used to create the platform with the seats on it?
Basically, once I got the seats, I needed to be sturdy enough to hold them, so I just built it out of metal, so flat platform. I knew it had to have the seats high enough to where you could sit comfortably, but nothing to scale of a floor plan of a automobile.
And how did you get the seats?
The DA had them shipped to me.
From where?
Izzy's Auto Parts.
Okay. And were these the type of seats that were in the expedition that you were trying to recreate the seats for?
Yes, ma'am.
And had you seen pictures of the expedition that you were redoing the seats for?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you take any measurements of that expedition?
Some rough measurements, just from the rear of the front to the front of the rear, and a little of the height off the floor, just to get a rough scale.
And when you say the rear of the front and the front of the rear, please describe what that means.
Okay, the back seat, the back of the front seat to the front of the rear seat, where if it were, the seat were tilted back, it'd be a different, the seats move back and forth, so it's just, I just got a rough scale of that.
Okay. And when you say you got a rough scale of it, how did you get that number or that rough scale? What was the number that you used?
The distance between the front of the rear seat, the rear of the front seat to the front of the rear seat is like 29 inches.
Okay. And you said the seats move. Are the seats on the platform that you built, are they electronic?
Yes, ma'am. The front seats move, yes.
Okay, so you can move them back and forth on the little the slide that's attached to it?
Yes, ma'am. Just like they would in the car.
Okay. And what about the console that's also seated on the platform? Where did you get that part from?
That came with the seats in the whole package of seats and console together.
When you say console, are we talking about the armrest center console or like the dashboard glove compartment?
The center armrest where the gear shifter and the rear console where you keep anything in there.
Okay. And how many years have you been making or redoing these types of configurations?
This would be my first time for a court.
Okay.
But as far as making different dollies and customizing stuff like that, I've been doing it for a good while.
Okay. And what is the actual difference between what you created and the actual floor plan of the expedition?
A big difference. This here is just a platform I made from scratch. For a floor plan, when it comes from the factory, it's made a lot different.
And how?
The floor pans are actually in like 3 different pieces. You've got the front, then the center, and then the rear. And they're all welded together by machine.
Okay. And how was yours put together?
I basically measured it out enough to where It would hold the seats, the width, and then the length, the front and the rear seats, and then welded it all together.
And how many pieces is yours that you created?
Mine's in 2 pieces, so it would come inside a door.
Okay. Other questions?
Mr. Harvey, any questions for Mr. Wade?
Perhaps I missed it. I understand that the demonstrative that you have prepared, I understand it's bolted down, correct?
Yes, sir.
And welded in place, correct?
The frame is, yes.
And I think you told us that it is not to scale.
No, sir.
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay. I guess I need to understand when you say not to scale, are the seats, you saying smaller or larger than Ford Expedition seats, or those are Ford Expedition seats as far as you know?
Those are Ford Expedition seats. When, not to be precise, when you measure from the floor to the bottom of the seat, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I think it's around 7 or 8 inches. And mine's around 7.5 inches, so very close.
Okay.
As far as, you know.
So the distance, then you helped us better, helped me better understand back of the front of the back, what they call it pitch on airline seats, but the space between the front set of seats and the rear set of seats, is that how close to being the same as in a Ford Expedition?
A half inch.
All right. Do you have any follow-up, Ms. Griffin?
No, I don't.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Is Mr. Wade free to go?
Well,
No. Well, you need to step outside, and then they'll let you know what free to go really means.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm happy to hear either from Mr. Rucker, who it sounds like would be using the seats during the examination of Ms. Carter, or Ms. Griffin, who just now worked with Mr. Wade. How do you intend to describe what exhibit number will it be? If you know.
Well, I intended to perhaps, for purpose of the record, refer to it as give it a letter.
Okay. A.
State's Exhibit A.
Okay.
For demonstrative purposes to be used for the witness to describe, the events surrounding the shooting.
So Exhibit A will be for demonstrative purposes.
Right. Won't go out to jurors.
Won't go out to the jurors, it would fill up the jury room.
Right.
But it also doesn't sound like you would be arguing in closing. There's pinpoint precision here, and so something must have happened the way the state is arguing it happened, because Exhibit A is exactly what things were like in the car.
No, I'm not. And in fact, that's kind of formed a lot of the basis for my motion for jury.
Okay. Mr. Harvey, in light of what I've heard and you've heard from Mr. Wade, Ms. Griffin, and Mr. Rucker, anything more you want to get on the record concerning what sounds like you're going to be calling State's Exhibit A alpha?
No, I understand that for demonstrative purposes, it doesn't have to be an exact replica or a duplicate. I just wanted to make sure that that's what it was being offered for. It is being offered for demonstrative purposes only, but not to be able to be argued that it was, here it is, the way it was. And with that, no, I have nothing else that I want to add.
Okay. So there isn't a concern later on, the way I'm hearing this would empower the state to argue, here's what it was like, which I view as different from here's how it was.
Correct.
And if that's how the state intends to use it, and we've now heard from Mr. Wade, it sounds like there won't be an objection. I appreciate you flagging it in this way, so we don't have to get Ms. Carter off the stand and then just sort of have to do that anyway, but in a truncated way. You can just have Exhibit A ready to go. Speaking of which, when we reconvene in about 40 minutes or whenever it is, will Exhibit A be in court, or like the gurney, it's something that can come on in, or will we have to take a break to get Exhibit A in here? Come up out of the floor?
No, I think what my preference would be to have Mr. Wade go ahead and set it up during the break. I probably have a few more what I would call foundational questions to kind of get us there. But then during the point of my examination, I would request from the court the opportunity for her to come down and then take us through what happened.
So I guess then the next question I have, would it then just sit there for the rest of your examination, even if you had 30 more minutes of things that didn't relate to the chairs? Because if so, Mr. Harvey might want it removed, which would be a fair
I'm
request.
sure he's going to want it removed. And so we probably are going to ask for just a short break, but I understand it just takes a couple of minutes to disengage it and wheel it out.
Okay, but to minimize the number of breaks to get it in and out, you'd like to have it set up so that when we reconvene a little after 1, it's already out.
Right.
And you believe you'll get to it in pretty short order.
Right.
Okay? And then if Mr. Harvey wanted it back in for his cross-examination, that's something we could do, and we can work out the logistics, but it's then not going to go out of the courtroom and disappear. It could be reassembled.
Correct.
Does it make sense? You guys can think about it during the break, but and I'm not imposing this, just trying to keep it efficient and not limiting either side unduly. To have Mr. Harvey ask questions about the chairs while they're here, rather than having to come back in. You may not want to break your examination up into pieces, but the fewer times we have to bring it all in, the better. Just think about that during the break, and we'll see what makes the most sense.
Can I have made, I request a cautionary instruction when it's brought in, that it is being used solely for demonstrative purposes, and the jury should view it in that sense.
Sure. It'll be one of the first things I tell them, because it sounds like the chairs will be sitting there when they come in. They'll be wondering, what are these chairs? They'll probably have figured it out, but I'll let them know that the state intends to use this as a demonstrative aid only, and that's what it's meant for. Okay. Anything else from the state before we break for lunch? State, and I guess whoever is going to be working through Mr. McIver's statement to law enforcement, I have some more pages and line numbers to add. Mr. Samuel, the state flagged 4 areas, and I have reviewed those, and here are my thoughts. The state asked about page 42, line 21, through page 44, line 13. And I believe that within that segment, it would be appropriate for the state to play and the jury to see and hear page 43, line 13, through page 44, line 4. The state asked about page 49, line 20, through page 50, line 25. I think that's a reasonable request. And
44, line 20, through 50, line 25.
49. It's okay. 49, line 20, through 50, line 25. That's the second one. Third one, they asked about 54, line 1, through 55, line 6. The first few lines are associated with Mr. Leipold. It doesn't really make sense that he's the one saying them. Is it the state's understanding that the video or audio would show that in fact Mr. McIver is saying those few lines that are attributed to Mr. Leipold?
Yes, I believe so, and I'll double check it for the court on my
Okay.
record.
If in fact it's Mr. McIver saying those first few lines at the top of 54, then that whole thing can come in, I believe. 54, line 1, through 55, line 6. And then the state asked for some lines on page 64, and I don't believe that there is a basis for those to come in. So I agree that 3 more segments ought to be playable to the jury. I appreciate the 2 sides haven't conferred yet, and I certainly haven't heard from Mr. Samuel at all. These are requests from the state. Anything from the defense before we break? Okay, let's try to be back at 1:05. Thank you.